Hello, and welcome to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. I'm your host for this week, Shannon Vasconcelos, and we are officially in the holiday season now, I'd say. I'm rocking my cozy sweater today. It's cold here in Massachusetts. And we're also deep into college application season, which we're going to talk about today, and actually getting into the season of receiving college decisions. So we're going to be talking about that in just a minute. Before we do that, I just want to ask you to stick around for our final segment where we're going to be answering your listener questions, including what I hope will be a fun sort of lightning round on the brand new FAFSA. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And I also want to welcome any new listeners we might have this week who might have found us on Amazon Music, where we've been a featured podcast this week. So thank you if you're just checking us out for the first time. And if you haven't checked us out on Amazon Music, pop on over there to check out their listening experience because it's really great. Now, for our first segment, we are going to be talking about those early round admissions results. And joining me to help us with what our next steps should be after we receive those results is my colleague and former admissions officer at Wheaton College and St. Lawrence University, Michael Yager. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, thanks a lot. Welcome.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you here. And I should first say that this episode is dropping on December 7th. So tell me if I'm right, Michael. I'm guessing most people don't have early round results yet, but we'll probably be getting them,
Probably,
in the next kind of week or two.
usually mid-December, right before schools go on break. Oftentimes, like that December 15th is a big date, or the Friday around that date.
That makes sense. They like to drop those decisions and then go away on a holiday break. So they're not dealing with the aftermath, right?
Right. Yeah. And to give, families a time to celebrate or to be together and come up with a new strategy.
That's perfect. And you're going to help us with those strategies. And as we talked about it before going on the air, we sort of framed it as there's all these different scenarios that can happen with early results, depending on if you applied early decision or early action and whether you got accepted or denied, or some of those kind of less straightforward decisions, which I think are sort of the most complicated to work with. So our game plan is kind of to walk through those scenarios one by one. You're going to help us out with kind of what to do in each of these situations, Michael. So you ready to dig in?
Yeah, there's a lot of holiday gifts that can be unpacked here at this admission season.
Absolutely. And the first one is a gift, and I think like probably the easiest scenario. I've been admitted, early decision. Yay, I'm happy about it. It was my first choice. I applied through this binding process. I've been admitted. Now what happens?
Yeah, I'm first is to celebrate. Obviously, this is something that a lot of students have. This is a milestone in their lives, and they've had a lot of support along the way. So it's definitely important to celebrate in the way that you feel like is most appropriate, whether that's going out to dinner, whether that's screaming and jumping up and down. But I think taking the time to recognize the accomplishment is certainly important. I always, we're just off of Thanksgiving. When you get this good news, it's also a good time to think about gratitude and maybe thanking the teachers that wrote those recommendation letters for you. You don't have to get them anything, just a thank you would be enough. Making sure you let your counselor and teachers know that you've been admitted, because a lot of them are waiting and they want to be excited for you. As a former school counselor, it was great around the holidays to see kids come in or email me over the break and just say like, I got in, because there's a lot of work that goes into it, as students know from the educational side. So some gratitude, some celebration, some logistical things. I mean, usually a school will have you deposit. If you're an early decision candidate, they'll give you a few weeks to deposit. So making sure that you get that deposit in and reserve that spot. And then paying attention to all the other things that are going to be coming your way. So there will be stuff that comes your way in the portal or via email about orientation, about selecting residence halls, about getting your medical records in. So lots of logistical things that need to be tended to. Maybe not right away, but definitely keep checking that portal every couple weeks.
Perfect. And but that's a good shout out we should give to actually our next week's episode. We're going to be talking with another one of our colleagues, Elise Krantz, about some of those logistical steps. So definitely tune in for that. So the next scenario equally exciting, maybe a little bit more complicated. We'll find out. You applied non-binding early action and you were accepted, and you're happy about this as well. Anything different we should be thinking about?
A little bit. I mean, usually the early action results will come in a little bit later, so you might not get these until
Mm.
January or February, but they're on the horizon. Some schools may be a little bit earlier than that. But between now and then, a good thing to do is complete any regular decision applications that you need to complete before we hit school break, before we hit mid-December. So making sure that you're getting everything lined up. If you've been admitted early action, you still have the options on the table for you. So at that point, it's comparing, which of these schools is the best fit for me now that I do have at least one or maybe multiple offers in hand. And so thinking about, do I want to go back to campus and visit again? Do I want to visit for the first time? And now you have a little bit longer of a window than if you had waited to apply for regular. So usually you'll have a couple months to check out, maybe visit the campus, look at the financial aid packages. This year is going to be a different year in terms of the late rollout with the free application for federal student aid. So making sure that side is taken care of, and it might be a little bit longer than most years. So working with financial aid offices and parents or guardians to make sure that's all taken care of as well.
Perfect. And I'm so tempted to go on a diatribe about that. I'm going to save it for our last segment where we're going to go through those FAFSA questions. So the next scenario, Michael, not quite as fun. You haven't been accepted. You have been deferred. Can you explain what exactly that means and what you need to do now?
Yeah, this can be a tough one for a lot of students because you don't really know what it means, and it doesn't mean anything, essentially.
Yeah.
You've just been pushed into the regular decision pool. So we can speculate on what it might mean. Maybe the school had a lot of applications this year. Maybe you were a borderline candidate and they're waiting to see what the full pool looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you had a rough junior year and they want to see senior grades, and that's all they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
to put that final stamp of approval on an acceptance letter. But in any case, with a deferral, what you want to do is make sure that you're responding to any requests from the college or university if they're asking for something additional, whether it's your mid-year grades, making sure your counselor knows to send those, that you're still interested in this school. So you can still declare interest. If you were deferred, you can still certainly write the admission office. You don't need to do this every day or every week or even more than once, but just that, you're excited to receive a letter, you're still very interested. Here are some personal updates. If you were selected captain of a team, if you won a local award or anything that's happened that you feel like would be helpful to your application, you can still produce that information and send it to the admission office, but it's kind of wait and see at that point.
Mm-hmm. And so if you're deferred, you're given sort of, they're saying, we don't know right now. We want to see how our regular decision pool looks, what it looks like. So then you should expect an answer with the regular decision pool, which would typically be like in March at most schools.
Yeah, probably mid to late March for most
Okay.
schools. So it's going to be a buckle up and wait for a little while longer.
Yeah. And speaking of waiting, and what I would probably say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, deferred's not a great decision. You don't like to be deferred. Even a less positive decision, I would guess, would be you have been waitlisted. Can you explain what that means, what you need to do now?
Sure. For both defers and waitlist, I would often tell students it's not a no, and they don't put that you were deferred or waitlisted on a diploma. So if you are ultimately enrolled, you can go here and you can attend the institution that you wanted to. It's just a matter of this is going to be a process that takes a little bit longer than the average student. For waitlist, if students are given a wait list, it usually doesn't happen at early decision. Most schools try to give you, because you've given them that contract, they try to give you a clean decision of admit or defer or deny outright at early decision.
Mm-hmm.
Usually you'll see a lot more wait lists at early action.
Mm-hmm.
And similar, to the reasons why a candidate might be deferred, it might be that the school is just looking for more information. They want to see those additional grades. Maybe they'd like to see test scores. Maybe you haven't taken test scores for that second or third time, and so there could be some additional information coming towards them that they feel like would help your application, and they want to keep the door open for you. So similar to defers, waitlist candidates can definitely express interest. The school may tell you how to do that. They may say, like, here's a couple of questions that you can answer if you wish to remain active on the waitlist, and that's a big deal. if a school is offering you an opt-in to remain active on the wait list, you want to do that as soon as possible. Because most schools are likely not going to deliver admission letters to candidates that haven't expressed an active interest on that wait list.
Got it. So that's super important to make sure that you do that. And for if you've been waitlisted, I would guess you wouldn't expect any updates on that until close to or maybe past the May 1st deposit deadline.
It can depend on the school. So
Yeah.
as colleges are receiving deposits throughout April and March and May, if they feel like as an institution they're going to be short on candidates and they're looking to their wait list, they may start to offer students in advance of that May 1st. I've worked at a couple places where we did that on certain occasions. It's more likely not going to be the case. It's most likely if there's going to be movement from the wait list, it's probably going to happen in May, maybe early June. As we get to mid-June, probably unlikely at that point.
Yeah.
But usually schools will send out a waitlist release like later in June or potentially early July, letting you know that it's over at this point.
Got it. And I would say as like an emotional next step, you probably have to be prepared to go somewhere else. Am I right, Michael? You
Yeah.
can't hinge all your hopes on that wait list.
Right. And especially like most schools will usually give you a little bit more information of how they operate their wait list and what their typical admit rates are from the wait list. And so if you're looking at a school, you can certainly reach out to them and ask them about like what's the typical waitlist process look like, how many candidates are typically admitted. Some schools it may be relatively high, maybe they take 10 or 15% of candidates from the waitlist, and that might give you a little bit more hope. Other schools, you may see that their historical numbers are down in that 1 to 3% rate, in which case you can pretty much plan on finding another option at that point.
Got it. So now maybe a little bit more unique situations, maybe, though not hugely unique. What if you were, in fact, offered admission, but not to your first choice major? That's a tough one. What's the thought process there?
Yeah, this sometimes comes down to just personal preference. Like how attached are you to that major? How attached are you to that particular school? Do you really want to go there because it's in state and it's cheaper and it fits your budget? And that's an important priority. Is it you want to be pre-med and you weren't offered bio, but you were offered like public health, or you were offered something different? And do you feel like you're going to get enough of a preparation for your next steps by taking this alternate pathway? You can look to see what the school's internal transfer policies are. Some are going to be more strict than others. Like for University of Illinois or Urbana-Champaign, for example, students can't do an internal transfer into computer science. They just don't have seats for it. It's too competitive of a program. So if that's your end goal, then taking an offer at a different major is going to be something that's probably not an option if you're that committed to that particular major. So really you have to do a little bit more homework potentially on whether or not you want to take this offer. For early decision candidates, what offering a different major means, and this usually doesn't happen, would be that you're essentially released from that ED contract. So you could then explore other options. You're not bound to that school because they didn't offer you what you had applied for. But again, that's typically a pretty small portion of the population.
Okay. So we've gotten through many of the acceptance scenarios, defers, wait lists. Now's the one we don't like so much, denials. So you have been denied by that first choice school in the early rounds. So you're not deferred. They're not saying we're going to consider you again. No deferral, no wait list, straight out denial. But it's your first choice school. Can you apply again? They're not deferring you to the regular decision round. Can you sort of defer yourself? Can you apply again in the regular decision round?
Not in this application cycle. So if you apply, let's say you apply early decision and you're denied, that's it for this year. You can go to another institution, you can take a gap year, you can apply again the following application cycle, but there's no trying again in a different application type. So you can't move from early decision to regular decision in the same year. And it's likely you get that same answer anyway, because if you were not admitted early decision,
right,
the odds are that nothing's really changed at that point other than a semester's worth of grades.
Right, got it. Now, how about, okay, you've been denied from that first choice school. You know you can't apply again this year. Maybe you really want to start college right away. You don't want to think about that kind of gap year option. You got to go someplace else to start, but you can't get that early decision school out of your head. You're thinking, oh, I'll go to another school for a semester, a year, and then I'll transfer to
Yeah,
that first choice school. Is that a possibility?
it is. This is definitely a counseling conversation I love to have with students. It's really hard to enter into college. So if you're denied your first choice school, you put all your research in, you felt like this
Mhm.
was the best fit for you, and this is the best match, and it didn't work out. It's hard to go to a second choice school with that mentality of I'm just going to be here for a semester, I'm just going to be here for a year, and then I'm going to transfer. It just impacts the way you approach your day to day, like going to your classes, the friendships that you may be trying to make, knowing that they're only going to be there for a couple months. So it can be a big challenge. I usually challenge students to give the institution that they ultimately enroll at a shot, give them a fair shot at earning essentially, your business,
Yeah.
being there for at least a year, going through those 4 seasons and doing it. It's it's a hard thing to apply as a transfer after just one semester. You're not really going to have grades at the college level. Schools will see that you've finished out high school and hopefully you've done well, and that helps your application a little bit more. But there's not a significant amount of change in one semester. So students are certainly welcome to do that. But I usually encourage students to think about giving their chosen school a year and then reapplying.
That makes a lot of sense. That gives you the chance to do something different with that application. You weren't accepted as an incoming freshman. What's going to be different when you apply as a transfer? So giving it that year seems to make a lot of sense where you can actually get involved in the community and in the academics so that you have something new to show the college.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I think that's where the attitude shift that you talked about is really important too, because if you really go in thinking I'm out of here as soon as possible, it's going to be really hard to do anything impressive at the school if you're just, oh, maybe I'll show up for this class, maybe I won't, maybe I'll meet these people in my dorm, maybe I won't because I'm planning on getting out of here in a few months. Committing to that school you're attending, I think would give you better outcomes, like no matter what you
Yeah.
decide to do, right? Whether you
Yep.
decide to stay there or leave, you're gonna do better if you have the right attitude going in.
Yeah, and taking time to like grieve the decision is okay too. You don't have
Yeah.
to run right out and like pick another school. Like
Yeah.
you can wallow in that pity for a short period, do what
Yeah.
you have to do, go into your room, throw a Nerf ball at the wall, whatever it is that that helps get it out and then reapproach and know that where you ultimately go isn't going to define who you are as a person. So these decisions that come out, they're an opportunity to go and do something at the college level. They're an opportunity to go and grow and learn and do something else. And so this won't define who you are. It's going to hurt for a little bit,
Mhm.
like a lot of things in life, but
Right.
ultimately like giving this secondary institution or whoever you were admitted to the real shot and proving that growth for a full year is definitely helpful as you go back and reapproach the admission process as a transfer student.
Absolutely. And speaking of giving other places a shot, here's a scenario that I feel like colleges are doing more and more lately. But you have been admitted, but not to the main campus that you applied to a satellite campus with the opportunity to transfer into the main campus after a year. What do you do in this situation?
Yeah, a lot of this is personal preference because sometimes the offers will come and it's like, hey, we're going to give you this offer where you can go and spend the first semester or the first year abroad at one of our satellite campuses and you can get this experience and some of those can be a great opportunity, especially if a kid has a desire to travel and
Mhm.
it fits in with your major. It's not going to impact your ability to graduate in 4 years. You get usually a smaller cohort that you can bond with, so when you do go back to that main campus you do feel connected in some way to the college or university that's offering you this type of scenario.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a smaller satellite campus, that's that may be less desirable than your first
Mhm.
choice, but knowing that you can be there and still be a part of the institution, still have that institution's ID, still go to like the events, the different things that you have on the main campus, Sometimes that can be desirable for students, and sometimes it's just they don't want to spend a year doing something that they don't really
Yeah.
want to do, and that's okay too. Is to look at this offer and say, no, it's not something I'm interested. I'd rather have the campus that I want to be on as my second choice or third choice or whatever one
Mhm.
ultimately offers that full admission offer.
And is it any different thought process if, depending on if the campus is the one, maybe an hour away from the main campus, or if it's a first semester abroad in London, which again seeming to becoming more popular these days. Could you maybe explain also why your college is doing this?
Yeah, colleges can do this for a variety of different reasons. Most of it is they're trying to control the enrollment, so that a lot of times in the spring semester you'll have your own students that are already enrolled that are traveling abroad. And so spring semester tends to be there's more numbers going abroad. Maybe there are some students that decided to transfer back home because they didn't like being away from home. And so there's more beds and more physical space that opens up in the spring.
Yep.
And so that's where some of these offers come from, is just schools trying to manage the numbers that they have on campus and be as efficient as they can with their resources.
Hmm.
So it doesn't oftentimes have a whole lot to do with your admissibility as a student or your application. This is just an offer that schools are utilizing as a way to manage their populations in a lot of ways. The the other thing
Yeah.
about with an abroad experience is usually it's going to be a little bit more expensive than if you were just
Mm.
invited to a satellite campus down the road or to a different part of the state or wherever it is. And so that can certainly play a role in, do you want to spend that extra money for this particular institution, or is it not a part of
Right.
your family planning?
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Now, how about the scenario similar to our first scenario where you're admitted ED and our first student said, yay, they were thrilled with that. What if you're admitted ED, but you're not quite as sure that you want to attend that school? Can you wait from offers for the other schools that maybe you've now decided that you like better? Can you do that if you've applied early decision?
No. So essentially, you have to be thoughtful with signing these ED contracts because they
Yeah.
are an agreement that you've signed, a school counselor signed, a parent has signed. And so once you receive that admission letter and you have the green light and you can deposit, at that point your process is over and you should withdraw all of your other applications. At that point, you shouldn't even be waiting around for decisions from other institutions, because withdrawing your application, taking yourself out of the pool is definitely the most considerate thing that you can do for your
Mhm.
for your other classmates. Remember that your grades are not going to go to these other schools because school counselors are not going to be able to send them once you've received
Ah,
an ED admit as well. And so at that point, you really have to make your deposit and decide to enroll with the institution that you've chosen.
got it. And I'll just throw out there from the finance perspective, the only exception to
Right.
that is if you've received a financial aid offer, and because of the delay of the FAFSA, a lot of the schools are doing tentative offers. If they use the CSS profile, they're able to do that. If the finances make it impossible for you to attend, you can request to be let out of your early decision contract for that reason. So I always like to remind
Yeah.
people that that is still an option. Ideally, you would have done your research in advance and done the
Right.
net price calculators and known whether or not the school is in your price range. But if you kind of dropped the ball there and you made a mistake up front by
Yeah.
applying early decision to a school that you really shouldn't have applied to early decision, you do still have a chance at this point to correct the
Yeah.
mistake.
Or if
Uh,
circumstances have changed, a parent loses
yes,
a job or something like that, and now this
exactly.
becomes unaffordable. There's a lot of valid reasons why you can get out of an ED contract financially, but again, you want to do that homework on the front side.
Absolutely. And I think probably our last scenario for today, I was offered a spot on the wait list, but my friend who was admitted to the same college decided they don't want to attend. Can I just take their spot? Can't we do a switcheroo, Michael? Isn't that
Is this
allowed?
from what's the Netflix show? Have I ever? I think this
Never have
came up
I.
on that
Yeah.
show, right? Um, no, you can't do this. So it's not how it works in the college admissions landscape. There's going to be a whole bunch of students on a wait list. the school is going to decide who they want to take as they're filling different needs that they might have, whether it's net tuition revenue, so they need families that have the ability to pay, whether they need more kids on the marching band, whatever it is that they're looking for in their wait list when they go to it is what they're going to choose. So it's not like you would have that option.
Nice try then. Good thinking, dear student, but sorry, not
Right.
an option. So thank you so much, Michael. I think we got through all the possible scenarios that students who applied early might have. If you got a scenario we did not address, send it in to us, and we will tackle it in an upcoming listeners' questions segment. But I think we covered most of them. And speaking of listeners' questions, we're just going to take a quick break. And then we're going to be answering some listener submitted questions. Michael's going to stick around with us, which is awesome. So you stick around too. We'll be right back.